Mike Ragusa too. Hey, Mike.
How are you?
Okay, go ahead.
All right, do we have a motion to return from executive session?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any against? Okay. All right. So now let's get back to the agenda since we've now finished the first thing on it. Do I have a motion on the consent agenda?
Motion.
So,
I'm sorry, who said yes on the motion? Was it you, Chris?
Yes.
Do we have a second?
second.
Any discussion, anything you want pulled off of the consent? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, any against? Okay. All right, old business, the Municipal Electric and Gas Alliance contract. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Any discussion?
I could say something. It looks like to me, the rate is very, very favorable for having renewable energy. It looks like, according to what I can figure out, it's a third of a cent extra.
Mhm.
That seems like a really great price.
Yeah, I mean, my whole, goal in this is not to get locked into a, fossil fuel generator. And I think this does a good job and keeps us at the, keeps us where we need to be price wise, but also lets us, start eating some of our cooking on sustainability. Anybody else? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Any against? Okay. All right. Sorry. The school calendar, amend the school calendar. Laura, primarily just to pull the superintendent days in.
We have 4 superintendent days that we typically spread throughout the year for trainings and professional development, but we felt the need to front load the school year so that we could have important trainings and professional development for our teachers before the opening of school on the 14th for students.
Okay. And anything else in here changed from what it was?
No.
Okay. All right. Do we have a, where the heck did I do my agenda? Come on. Hang on for a second, sorry. Do we have a motion to approve the, amend the school calendar?
I'll
So
motion.
moved.
I'll second.
All right. Any discussion other than what I just screwed up and said outside of the motion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any against? All right, fund balance and reserves discussion.
Good evening, everybody. So next week is the time at which you're going to approve the reserves. That's when our audit will be complete, and the amount of our reserves and the amount of our actual fund balance will be complete. Right now, we're anticipating that there will be an approximate $1.8 million above our 4% unrestricted fund balance. So you will be faced with a decision as to what you want to do with that $1.8 million above the 4% unrestricted fund balance. So there are a couple of options that we're going to be presenting next week for you. We'd like some of your thoughts about it now, but we will be able to reserve just about all of our $1.8 million within justifiable and defendable reserves if we go pretty much right up to the maximum of all of our reserves. There is another option available to you should you choose to have it, and that is to go above the 4% in the unrestricted reserves, knowing that we have and may have even more additional, we'll have plenty of COVID expenditures that we're going to have to make in order to ensure that our facilities are where we want them to be, in order to make sure we have the appropriate PPE. There's going to be, you'll see later on in our discussion, maybe even upwards of $300,000 worth of expenditures that we may have. The question is, to what degree is there interest on the board in what I would characterize as piercing the 4% cap that's allowable to us under Section 1318 of real property tax law. So I did survey some of our local school districts, and 7 of those districts did have a chance to answer the query, and 4 of them did indicate that they too will be, if we choose to, they also will be looking to go above the 4% threshold. And generally where that money is coming from and why we have more fund balance than usual is basically due to the lack of expenditure that we needed to make in March through June last year. I would say we had about $870,000 of special ed expenditures that didn't have to happen. In our transportation alone, we had another $650,000 of expenditures that didn't have to happen. So those 2 things are the bulk of our fund balance. So I'm here for your questions and just to to know and kind of to set you up that next week we will be talking about where we're going to approve, and you're actually going to set your fund balance levels next week.
So just to be specific, what are you looking for now, Brian?
Yeah, so to what degree may there be interest in going above the 4%, or to what degree in the unrestricted fund balance? Or to what degree would you prefer that I do with the accounting the best that I can and putting them more in defensible reserves as opposed to going above the 4%? So we could talk a little bit about the pros and cons. And if we're talking about a benefit of going up above the 4%, it's not in a restricted reserve. You would have the ability to use that money for anything that you deemed fit in a COVID world. So it's helpful to have that readily available. If we were to pack it all into a capital reserve, as an example, the only way to get that money out is by voter approval. So you might not want to tie up the money in that way, and you may want to be able to have it more to your avail. One of the cons of doing that is, well, it goes against real property tax law. It does highlight us a little bit for auditing, and we'll just share that openly. Because our reserves are public. It leaves us to a little bit of extra scrutiny. There is, in terms of penalty, and I sat in on an audit that was done, a webinar that was done by the comptroller's office, and they fully expect to see school districts going over the 4% is a little bit of what they shared. Like I said, 4 out of the 7 school districts in Dutchess County who responded to my query will be above 4%. So there's a little bit of a slap on the wrist. It will be cited by our auditors in a management letter finding. It will be, if you choose to move in that direction, it will be a corrective action plan would be required to make an effort to get underneath that 4%. And normally I wouldn't be thinking about recommending it, but it does protect us from needing to make unbudgeted and unanticipated expenditures through COVID. So it's a tool, what I would characterize as a tool for your consideration. But if you'd prefer that we not move in that direction, then we can just do everything that we can to pack them into our restricted fund balance, which is our reserves.
So we could basically put it in, you know, and how much dollar value are we talking about being, like, if we cut it off at 4, how much is left over? You know what I mean?
What there's $1.8 million.
Okay, so if we said, you know, we're assuming things like there's definitely going to be some technology needs. So you put 800 grand in there, you put, I don't know, whatever, and something else and something else. And that would keep us at the 4%, or just, you know, take our lumps and be able to still do the same thing. Like, you know, if we needed technology money, we could get it from that account. We would just get a you know, slap. Is that right? Pretty
Yeah,
close.
almost. Yeah. Yeah, we're kind of there. I guess we can't just if we take the money and put it in a reserve, it should be used for the purpose of the reserve. If we leave it in the unrestricted reserve, go over the 4%, basically we're acknowledging that we're increasing what's called our rainy day, what people like to think about in terms of being our rainy day fund. And that's what's capped at 4%. So maybe we would be at 6% or 8%. So every 4% is going to be approximately $1.3 million. Basically what I'm looking from the board is your comfort level in exceeding the 4%, and coming to you back next week with a plan to think about exceeding the 4%, or if there's not a comfort level with that, then doing everything that we can to make sure every bit of that 1.8 million is in a restricted reserve and defensible.
And what was the one we raised to 6%?
We raised it to $6 million, and that was
that's
capital.
it.
Yep, and that was the capital reserve.
Okay. And can we move it in there or no?
Yeah, in part, we have about a $1.2 million ability for that.
I mean, you know, I guess at least one of the things I'd want to see is, what is it, you know, is there anything that we know of that's going to be a major hit, you know, for whatever reason, where we're going to need this, you know, need to be able to pull this money versus having it in the capital fund, because we know we've got capital projects we want to do. So, you know, one of the things I'd want to see is, you know, just how much do we think we're going to need? I mean, if we're not going to need it, you know, it just, you know, we have everything we need right now, then I guess we, you know, take the beating.
Right now, in anticipated purchases for COVID expenses, we're looking at about $286,000. And that includes the PPE that we need, that includes increased broadband that we need, that includes cleaning supplies and sanitizer. We're looking at UV sterilizing units for technology areas. We're looking at some of those touchless toilets and touchless sinks that we discussed. And taken all together at first blush, we're looking at about $286,000 worth of expenses that I have enumerated here. We're looking at negative air machines and associated ductwork for that, in order for isolation rooms, to make sure that any infected air would not go into the hallway. And it would be pumped outside appropriately. So there's a lot of proactive measures we're taking. So we're even right now, we're looking at about a $300,000 number just in what we've been able to calculate and tabulate right now.
And that would come out of that 300 grand if approved, that would come out of this fund.
Yes.
Brian, could any of this money be used to reduce the tax levy and refund the taxpayer?
Well, so at this point, no.
Okay.
Our tax warrant is what it is. It wouldn't be a consideration for this year, but to the extent that the fund balance remains fund balance and you wanted to be able to assign money next year to reduce the levy in the consideration of the totality of the fund balance that's left over in 2021, that would be certainly something that you'd be able to do.
Thank you for explaining that to me.
Sure.
What is 1%? Each 1%?
Each 1% is about $300,000.
Then I would think you'd go up to would be plenty sufficient.
Say that again, John?
I would say 2% above 4 would be plenty.
Anybody else? Okay. So you got to bring that at the next board meeting?
Yeah, we didn't want to just hit you with it at a time where you just had to look at it and approve it. So yeah, so we'll come up with some version of a plan where we are going a little bit over the 4% and sharing it with our reserves. So we'll come to you with, there'll be a plan in your board packet for next week.
And Brian, would that cover, like the different options, like you said, like Howard's idea or the unrestricted, restricted, or are you just gonna give us the plan for if we did go over the 4%?
Yeah, so typically at the second board meeting in August, what you get presented with is exactly, so there'll be some version of a resolution that says that you are approving year-ending fund balance and reserves as presented in this document. That's kind of what the resolution looks like. And the document that you receive is exactly what your fund balance is, what your assigned fund balance is, what your restricted reserves are, and you're approving them at specific levels. And then that kind of solidifies our end of the year financials. It gives so the auditor would bless that before it goes to you. You would be blessing it, saying these are absolutely our end of the year financials. And then the auditor would create the end of the year financial reports for your approval in the second board meeting in September.
Okay.
I don't know if that answered your question. There was just a lot of information in there.
Thank you.
Are you okay?
Yes.
Did I get it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. And then the final part of our agenda tonight is really to look at, we have, well, they're called parent meetings, but they're, to show the public what is, what does opening day look like, to assure that all of our commitments are understood and made, that we're all the specifics, like, if you depend on a Lourdes bus, that bus is going to be there. So the next part is to go over the presentation, have the board sort of comment and, provide additional direction on this presentation, which will be done with a few board members, but the administration will be doing it on, correct me if I'm wrong, Laura, Thursday at 7.
Yep, correct.
And then Friday morning and afternoon, I don't remember the times.
Right.
10 and 1.
Say again, Caroline?
I think 10 and 1 is at the end of the presentation.
Okay. All right. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Laura and Caroline to talk about, what is the next, what does opening day look like?
Yeah, and Perry, I wonder with the board's approval, if I could just say a few words and share a couple of ideas with families and community members and the board before the presentation.
Sure.
I wanted to start off saying that I have carefully read every email I have received in response to the last board meeting. Through your words, I have felt your disappointment for your child who is looking forward to starting school for the very first time, your worry about balancing work with supporting your child's learning, your anger towards me for communicating that we will likely land on a hybrid model and it didn't happen, your panic in figuring out childcare, your deep disappointment in the board's decision to go remote, your exasperation over the infection data used as an explanation, your advocacy for your child who needs his or her peers in order to develop emotionally, your frustration and feeling like you weren't heard or considered. I also felt your relief over not having to send your child to school due to the many unknowns about the spread of COVID-19. I felt your worry for family members with underlying health issues, your angst about your child who is fearful of returning to school, and your hope for a vaccine. To be honest, if I was asked for my opinion regarding the reopening of our schools, I would have recommended some kind of hybrid model. I've been in education for over 2 decades, and my administrative team has been positively impacting the world of education for over 200 years combined. We know children, we know education, we know the research, we know the best practices, and we know how to design developmentally appropriate curricula and schedules that teach the whole child. We know that in-person learning positively impacts student achievement, builds trusting relationships, and fosters social emotional well-being. My recommendation would have also been based on our ability to meet the requirements set by the Department of Health and New York State Education Department. The administrative team has spent weeks working on approximately 140 mandatory plan requirements that spanned over approximately 18 categories. And we were confident we would be able to have them in place in time for some kind of soft opening of schools in September. Now, all of that said, our board was tasked with making a very difficult decision, not a decision I envy having to make. It wants to take the time to review protocols and practices developed, ensure procedures are in place, and explore ways we can exceed the standards set by the state for the benefit of the Millbrook Central School District and everyone in it. I believe this to be commendable and something we can genuinely commit to and support. So we are opening remotely. And tonight we're going to provide you with an overview of what it will look like. Recognizing that distance learning will not replace the extraordinary, valuable learning experiences students and teachers have when they are in school full time. We are confident that we have created and continue to refine a plan that is grounded in the understanding of current circumstances and lessons learned from last spring, and is carefully balanced against what can be meaningfully accomplished from a distance. While some may expect our approach and learning experiences to be similar to distance learning in higher education, colleges and universities, educating K-12 students in a digital environment requires much different planning and preparation that must include specifically designed, developmentally appropriate curriculum, materials, and activities based on using digital platforms. Whatever learning model we are in, we ask that parents continue to partner with us throughout the implementation of this plan to provide the resources, space, and encouragement for their children to engage in learning activities, complete assignments, and ask questions of their teachers if they are unclear about expectations. Elliot, if you could just cue up the presentation. Here is our draft presentation in preparation for our parent meetings. And as Perry said, we're looking to the board for feedback so that we can refine it to fit the needs of the board, the community, and our parents. The agenda, are you queuing up, Elliot? Thank you.
There it is.
All right, you can go to the agenda, the next one. So tonight's presentation, the agenda includes student expectations, remote learning, remote schedules, attendance, grading. We also have special ed in there, a day in the hybrid, and virtual parent meetings.
So the expectations of students in the remote model will be as follows. Students will be expected to attend class virtually in its entirety, unless otherwise directed, or they may be marked absent by the teacher. All attendance will be recorded in our student information system, which is School Tool. And students will have access to all of the attendance as typical through the student information system once it's been verified. Students will be issued a district Chromebook. That is K-12 actually. We have secured enough Chromebooks with the help of our technology department. We now have enough Chromebooks to be able to supply a device to every student K-12. So that is an improvement from this past spring. So we're very proud of that. So all students will have a district issued device if they need that, or if it is requested by the families, but we do have one for each student. They will utilize their computer camera for class participation and engagement, and they'll be able to participate in all classroom discussions and be able to answer any of the teacher posed questions or participate in any of the discussions and be able to build upon that with their peers. They'll be able to complete and submit assignments digitally, as well as exercise appropriate technology use as outlined in our acceptable use policy and follow the district's code of conduct. Additionally, remote learning. We will see that teachers will continue to provide daily activities and lessons in all instructional areas following a prescribed schedule. So teachers will use the first 10 to 15 minutes of instruction in the period to be able to provide direct instruction in their content area. The remainder of the period will be utilized to gradually release students to independence after an assessment of student skills. So after providing direct instruction of new information, teachers will be able to assess students regarding that new information. And then when the students as individuals are ready to be able to practice that work independently, they will be able to go ahead and do so on their own. Teachers will remain in that Google Meet for the remainder of the period. Should their students need any support, they'll be there to be able to provide that support for them. Morning meetings at the elementary level and home base at the secondary level, or check and connect periods, will be used for social emotional support on a daily basis. We will also ask teachers to work in grade levels or in departments to be able to prioritize their grade level curriculum in order to minimize the impact of the disrupted school year last year. At the end of last year's school year, teachers did work to be able to articulate to one another vertically what grade level standards were missed or were not able to be targeted or taught as in depth as usually would have been due to the COVID pause. So upon arrival in September, we will be able to review that as a learning institution, and we will be able to make changes and adjustments so that there is a seamless return to learning, and we will also be able to prioritize our anchor standards at every grade level so that there is no impact on success. We also will be able to strategically design instruction to account for the needs of diverse learners within our learning community, and also to develop baseline assessments and to determine student entry points and assess gaps in learning once a safe environment has been established. We also have K to 12. We have IXL in both math and ELA, so that we have one program that will universally be able to create benchmarks for each of our grade levels so that we can track data on all of the standards for those two highly tested areas. So it'll be very important for us to be able to use those benchmarking assessments to be able to monitor student progress and growth on those standards. We'll be able to use that, like I said, for a coherent assessment framework and to be able to use those skills and standards with different content areas as well for both writing and literacy and numeracy content. Brain breaks will be incorporated throughout the day. We do know that even though students will be in a remote environment, we do know that they still will need some time to just get up and stretch and move throughout the day. Teacher office hours will be incorporated throughout the week for student support and outreach to parents. And then there will also be opportunities for teachers to virtually meet with students in smaller groups for remediation as well.
Okay, so the Elm Drive and Alden schedules can look like that. And you'll see the school day then it's beginning with 8 o'clock, having teacher collaboration period. At 8:45, they're a little bit out of order here, but the morning meeting will take place daily. And then from 9 a.m. till 3:10 p.m. will be our school day. The core classes will be covered synchronously. The reading, writing, math, science, social studies. And teachers will use a combination of whole group and small group instruction. As Caroline mentioned before, the workshop model will be used during that 10 to 15 minute beginning of each lesson to target individual student strengths and weaknesses. And that has been the model that we've always used. So it's an easy fix for us to utilize that throughout the year. So we'll also include special classes asynchronously on a daily basis, the art, library, music, PE, and technology. And then support instruction will be included as well, periods for AIS, MSRP, that's the Wilson model of, and then the ICT, or not ICT, sorry, LLI classes, and so on, resource room and that type of thing.
So at the secondary level, you will notice we are maintaining our period by period schedule for our students. We'll open each day from an 8 o'clock to 9 o'clock teacher collaboration time. Again, giving our teachers the time to meet not only in grade level teams, but even departmental level teams. It's going to allow the flexibility of them to have that time to work and move through the many things that distance learning will provide. We'll have a check and connect time from 9 to 9:10. Again, this will be a time for us to meet with all of our students and help them set up for their day. At the secondary level for many of our students, this check and connect time is going to provide for social and emotional learning, character education at the middle school, but it's also going to help to set the tone for the day for most of our students, making sure they're prepared and know where their links are for their live instruction that they're going to be getting throughout the day. So you will notice we have a 9-period day that is set up in 35-minute periods tentatively. And the way in which this is going to be set up is a little bit different to make for a positive distance learning model. So direct instruction is going to occur at the beginning of each of these periods synchronously in a 15 to 20 minute span. From there, teachers will then gradually release students either to an assessment of their skills for private practice or for extra support. Teachers will remain on the line essentially in their synchronous instruction to help support students both for any enrichment opportunities, but also for any extra support that they may need with the work. So you will see a full student day, and obviously lunch is built into that for each student individually. And this is actually going to work hand in hand with the student's actual schedule when we eventually make the transition to a hybrid model, or even eventually long-term to a full in-school model.
For students with disabilities, following the NYSED guidance, when school begins in September, we will educate our students with disabilities with specific special class programming on their IEPs in person in order to prioritize our most vulnerable student population. That was part of the guidance from NYSED directly. And additionally, where practicable, we will also be providing related services in person as well for those students that have those specific services on their IEPs.
Hello, everyone. Regarding attendance, the New York State Education Department regulations mandate daily attendance, regardless of the model, for every period at the secondary levels and all core classes and special area classes at the elementary buildings. Similar to what was already discussed with respect to our student expectations, all students are expected to engage with and in the learning experience provided by their teachers. As administrators, we receive daily attendance updates and reports. If there are attendance concerns, our teachers, counselors, and administrators follow up with these students and their families to address the specific concerns. Our district uses a multi-tiered system of supports to address our absences. We will provide interventions to students who are not attending and for those students not engaging successfully in school. Some examples include, but are not limited to, family outreach and phone calls, counseling support services, assessments, referrals, as well as home visits. Our protocols are aligned so that our students can easily be identified and referred to our multi-tiered system of supports and our RTI teams if support is needed. Regarding grading, you had just heard about the direct instruction that will take place synchronously and asynchronously. Students will be formally graded with the normal school report card format. Our grading system will vary as it has in the past at both the elementary and secondary levels. At the elementary level, standards-based grading will be used on a 1 to 4 scale to assess student progress. Standards-based grading provides an opportunity for teachers to monitor students' proficiency in identified standards. Standards-based grading tells a parent how a child is performing in relation to the standard and helps to identify areas for improvement in their learning. Whereas a traditional grading system tells a parent how their child performed on tests or quizzes after learning has occurred. So students who earn a level 1 on the report card are performing below proficiency grade level standards. Level 2 is when students are partially proficient in grade level standards, but are not meeting all the successful criteria. Level 3 is when students are proficient in grade level standards, and level 4 is when students excel in specific grade level standards. At the secondary level, we will use the traditional grading system, averages ranging from between 0 through 100. These grades are converted to a letter grade at the high school only. As always, all assignments will be assessed and our teachers will provide feedback for the express purpose of fostering growth towards achieving grade level standards. And teachers will continuously monitor student progress, and both formative and summative assessments will be used for student accountability throughout the educational process. And lastly, due dates must be adhered to in order for students to maintain a steady pace to position themselves for success.
So we wanted to take a moment and take you through what we think a day in the life would be, starting with elementary school and then moving to secondary. So if we were a student, we would arrive on the buses or at parent drop-off and line up wearing a mask the whole time that we're there. There will be touchless temperature checks that are going to occur when we arrive to school. And providing that we don't have any of the symptoms that are detected, then we'll be allowed to begin our day. If we are exhibiting any signs of a fever, then we're immediately brought to the nurse and we'll follow those health protocols. While in the corridors and moving around the classroom as a student, we will wear our masks. Our desks will remain socially distanced throughout the day. Each class has actually been divided into 2 different groups of students. So there will be students in the classroom. There will also be students at home in the hybrid model. So the teachers are going to provide direct instruction to the students that are present in class. And while those students are in the room, potentially on Monday and Tuesday, their peers would be at home on a different schedule, and they would have synchronous learning opportunities in a remote setting. So those students at home will be able to log on, follow along, ask questions, get support. They're used to using the devices and navigating through the Google Classrooms from the experience last year. And the teachers will still be able to check their work and support them just like they would in a workshop model in class. And then you would then flip the script, as we talked about in our last board meeting, so that the students who are at home Monday, Tuesday would then be in school Thursday, Friday, and vice versa for the students Monday and Tuesday in school. So there are also some students in the class that are at home every day. And they don't come to school at all. They're always remote, and they're going to be able to log onto their computer and follow along with those lessons. They're going to be able to submit work every day. And at times there's going to be joint sessions using the teacher's camera where all the students will be able to see each other and get that peer-to-peer piece that's there. In the elementary level, we're going to have a regular schedule for reading, math, writing, science, and social studies. We also have special area teachers, and we will use them daily to push into the classroom perhaps, or even perhaps teach synchronously or asynchronously. As a student, we're going to wear our masks all day, but we will have several mask breaks. We'll make sure that our masks are on right away when we're moving around the room or around the school, going to the bathroom, traveling on the bus, or really any time that you're not practicing that 6 feet social distancing. Lunch, we've determined, will be in the classroom. Students will get to order their lunch during the morning meeting. Of course, when they eat and when they're ordering and speaking, they may not be wearing their mask, but they must stay at their desk when they do so. Most of the teachers, or all of them, are going to push into the room to minimize travel of students during the day and keep that cohort right where it is. And then our students will be able to take their devices home so they can use them for homework and on the days that they're not in school. So we're trying to create a day that obviously is not going to be exactly like it once was, but there's going to be a chance for a face-to-face interaction with the teacher, one-to-one interaction with the teacher in a workshop model, and then get that peer experience as well. And those are the key components to the hybrid at this level.
All right, so at the secondary level, again, as our plan is now in September, is to come back in a distance model. But with the ongoing plan always, eventually, that we are going to eventually make our way back to a hybrid model. This is what a day would look like for a secondary student when we do get there. So again, we would be following that AA remote day in the morning and BB school day. So our groups would be divided into 2 to limit the amount of foot traffic within the buildings. We as students would be arriving on buses, seating, of course, using socially distanced protocols, things like wearing masks, and then obviously prioritizing family members into seats that they can share, while also separating throughout the bus. But also making the other option for a parent drop-off for students who are utilizing that process. Students, again, a lot of this is going to be repetitive, so I'm going to move really quick because we are trying to use a K-12 model that is going to be user-friendly for our families that have students at many of those levels. So what we're hoping is that with many of these entrance and exit procedures, that they are uniform throughout the district. So things like lining up, being socially distanced while wearing masks, using the touchless temperature checks upon arrival. Obviously, we'll set the protocols for students when we do see fever or other issues that may be concerning. Again, when in corridors, we will always have masks on, and we will be utilizing spacing throughout those hallways, and obviously trying whenever possible to limit student traffic throughout buildings. Desks will remain socially distant at all times, and masks will be worn. However, breaks will be provided regularly. The different cohorts, again, as we've discussed in the past, are going to be split into 2 to limit the amount of students we have in the building at one time, and then working to have teachers provide direct instruction to students that are present in the room, while also being able to synchronously meet the instruction needs for the students who are not on campus at the time. And again, they'd be utilizing their district Chromebooks or laptops that they've been provided. Very fortunate for our students here at the secondary level. This is something we enacted full-time at the high school in the last few years, and then on a kind of more limited base. So our students are very used to using this technology, and they're very prepped for this kind of education. All of our teachers are going to have designated office hours to support students that are both in person as well as away from the building. And much like at the primary level, lunch is going to happen in classrooms where orders will be placed early on in the day and then delivered where students can take their masks off to eat from a socially distant and safe place. At the end of the day, we really believe that our students will know that school here in these times is going to look very different, but we're very confident that they will be very happy and excited to join their Millbrook educational family in this hybrid model.
Mike?
So in preparing for opening day, Mr. Sotero has been working with his kindergarten teachers and planning an outreach for his incoming students, especially to welcome the kindergartners who will be brand new to the Elm family, as well as his initial meetings with his Elm classes all together. They will include some social emotional activities surrounding getting to know one another and general community building. You know, as part of that, they will introduce appropriate mask wearing, appropriate hand washing, and just the general protocols surrounding the new reentry to school and what school looks like, just to be able to educate students as to coming back to school, the return to school, and sort of attempting to normalize some of the new protocols for coming to school in this climate.
Thanks, Caroline. I was stuck on mute. But
okay.
yeah, so we're brainstorming ways with the kindergarten team. So we have an idea. We're still putting the intricacies of it together about pushing out to meet some of these families and create that initial connection. But thank you very much for summing that up.
No problem.
And at Alden Place, where we've already started to plan the meeting with teachers and handing out of Chromebooks for grade 3. Will be followed up by virtual tours for parents and for all students to get an idea what the building is going to look like later on when they do return. And looking at that time when they do return, we'll include more orientation type activities for how to use the building correctly, and then do some of the orientation things that we normally do with our third graders. Maybe the planting of the tree, weather permitting, signing a basketball, doing walkthroughs and that type.
So at Millbrook Middle School, we started a lot of the transition work at the end of the year with our 5th graders. We worked together with with the 6th grade team as well as the 5th grade teachers to make connections with those 5th grade students that were going to be making the transition up to the middle school and their families. So we're really happy that we got to meet some of those families already and start to make the connections from student to student as well as from student to teacher and then their families as well. But we certainly want to continue that process. So we're going to be setting up a virtual meeting that will be held with the 6th grade students and their families to discuss the middle school prior to their first day with us in this virtual setting. We're also going to be setting a date for students and their families to be able to get in, pick up Chromebooks, and meet some of the 6th grade staff in person, although their first interactions will be in a digital format. We definitely have a commitment and a priority to our 6th graders when we do eventually get to a hybrid model and beyond, to make sure to get them in the building, and that's something we will prioritize as those times get closer. So that is definitely all planning that is going on that we are prioritizing. And then finally, we're recognizing the fact that for all of our students 6th through 8 in the middle school, this is going to be a new process. So we are going to set up things like a virtual school assembly that will be facilitated by myself and a team of teachers and guidance counselor and psychologists that will work together to make sure that all of our students in this virtual setting are prepared and ready for the expectations for those first 2 months of school and beyond.
And similar at the high school, we are going to set up a schedule of a Google Hangout meets with our connection crew. Our connection crew is a senior student leaders and our freshman teachers to welcome our class of 2024 to discuss life at the high school. Again, similar, we're going to set up a date for students to pick up their new 9th grade Chromebooks. And lastly, we will host a virtual school-wide assembly, again, facilitated by myself along with my team at the high school.
And lastly, we, as Perry noted earlier, we have 3 virtual parent meetings scheduled this Thursday, August 20th at 7:00 p.m., Friday, August 21st at 10, and Friday, August 21 at 1. They will be on our Zoom webinar. We are going to send, after we solidify this agenda with the board, we will send out an invite to parents and the agenda so that an invite that they can submit questions in advance, and it gives us time to prepare. But also during those webinars, parents will be able to submit questions as well. So we look forward to hearing from our parents and seeing our parents. And so that is our draft presentation, and wondering if there are, and these were really based on the things we heard from parents in surveys, emails, and throughout the spring. As we said earlier too, that this is going to be very different than our time in the spring. In the spring, we were reacting. We've had lots of time to have lessons learned, think about what we want, what it looks, sounds, and feels like in a hybrid and remote, and designing developmentally appropriate and rigorous curriculum for our kids. So are there any questions or suggestions or recommendations?
Laura, I do.
Great.
So first of all, I want to say thank you to everybody that I see on the screen for all your hard work that you've all done. I know these last couple of weeks have been tremendous for you all. So I just really want to say thank you to each and every single one of you that are on the screen, and to the teachers that are going to also be starting very soon with working with curriculum. So I just want to say thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. And one question I have, and I think it's going to go to Caroline, is, because I'm sure this is a question on everybody's mind that's watching, is when are the teacher assignments going to go out, and when is there going to, you know, their class schedules and teacher assignments for the schools going to go out? Do you have that answer? I'd hate to put you on the spot, but do you have anything that we can share? Sorry, Caroline.
So teacher assignments specifically, very soon. Teacher assignments in terms of what they are teaching, subject areas, they should have. If not, we can send them out very, very soon, like tomorrow-ish. But in terms of student schedules, once we know for certain, now that we know for certain what environment we're going on and can focus on that explicitly, we should be able to fine tune the master schedule and get it out pretty quickly.
To that, can I just add on, like, some of the like elementary kids that, you know, just have one teacher, when does that go out? Like, whether it's kindergarten, first, second, third?
Well, some of that we were waiting for as well, because we weren't certain if we were going to go hybrid, if we were going to be dividing classes. We didn't really know, so we were kind of reluctant to send out class lists and then have to divide them, change teachers, do all of that. So now that we have a new principal in place starting on Monday, we'll be able to issue all of that as well. We didn't want to do any of that without a new principal in place either, so.
All right, thanks.
I'll go. I would think parents would like to know, is there maximum class, what's the kind of maximum class size and how the class actually works? The spacing and stuff, I would think probably set some expectations, because I think people may think there's a lot more mingling going on perhaps than I may understand.
Yep, so currently we are on remote. So
I'm talking, okay, yeah, that's true, yes, remote is.
So are you talking about when we go back hybrid?
Well, the remote, that will be a normal class size, or would that be sort of setting up to where when they go back hybrid, it's going to be similar?
So they're following their period 1 through 9 schedule. So it would be a typical class that we have in our schools.
Oh, would be, okay.
Yeah, they're following their 1 through 9 schedule.
So class size would be your normal, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Classes are smaller than others, but elementary school wise, it would be approximately.
whatever they've been typically in the teens.
Yep, 16, 18
Yeah.
on that area.
Should we be, well, you did talk about hybrid, correct, in this plan here. So should you be talking about that a little bit of what you envision?
In terms of what would you like?
Class size for in school?
Yeah, so Mike, the classrooms have no more than 11 desks in them, right?
Yeah, I took a tour the other day, and most of them have under 10. So just for instance, if you had 16, you now have 8, and it's 6 feet apart in every direction. And we're fortunate at Elm; they're very large classrooms. So there's some room to move around, you know, obviously with your mask, but it's almost as simple as that. You know, if you have 16, you cut it in half, you're at 8. Doesn't mean that that's necessarily the amount of kids that's going to be in there, but that's the social distancing capacity. You know, when we find out that kids are going to opt out fully, you may only have 6 in that section if that's the way it balances out. So we still need to find that information, you know, so we're fortunate that we have some time to nail down those numbers once we hear from families.
So there's the state calls it a cohort, a pod, maybe some people call it a pod. So there's that in the elementary, there's that notion that group stays together all day. Right?
Yeah, that is. So if there's any sort of provider or someone coming in, you know, in any situation where the students would have left their room to go travel, we're going to do whatever we can to make sure that that person then can push in, and that just minimize the cohort. And remember, the idea here, like, is not to stop the spread; it's to mitigate it. So when you're talking about cohorts, you know, that's what that does. So in the event that you know, heaven forbid, someone does get sick, you know, it's that smaller group. So. But that's a long way down the line.
And at the high school?
Mike Ragusa, what's the maximum number of desks that are in the high school classrooms? You have to unmute.
Hi. So all the classrooms in all 4 buildings have 11 desks and a teacher's desk, all socially distanced, all facing the same way, facing the whiteboards, wherever the whiteboards were. Originally this way, we didn't have to go and move everything around and do everything. So everything is facing the boards, everything's facing the same way. And in every classroom, there's 11 desks and a teacher's desk and room up in the front for in case the teacher's going to be in the front walking back and forth. There's room up in the front of the classroom. And also there'll be marks on the floor. So if the teacher sees anybody move a desk or anything, he or she will know, you know, this way.
I think it would be helpful to talk about that for both kind of plans, just to give an idea.
So add a space like a slide just about what the classroom looks like, the number of desks. Yep, yeah. I think that's great.
Yeah. Just so they know it's not the normal.
And can we also include since we've gone into the hybrid part, what limits us in hybrid? Like, suppose we said, forget that Wednesday that everybody's off, or not off, but everybody's remote. Suppose we said, go school 5 days. You know, what would it take? Should we, you know, if we had half the kids say, I'm going to go remote all the time, maybe some different models, because some of the parents have asked about, you know, I don't understand this thing where my kids got to come home and get back on. So, you know, and I don't understand why it's only, you know, 2 3/4 days a week. Well, maybe we should give them some additional information about you know, risks and the number of students that have said they'd opt out, or parents that said they would opt out. That gave us the analysis to do this. You know, it's 2 3/4 days a week.
Yeah, and I think that's a good idea. I mean, there's no set model. And quite honestly, since we're starting out with remote, we can watch the other school districts that are in hybrid and see what's working for them and what's not working for them. I know in Lower Westchester, some of them are offering parents options. Do you want your child to come in full time or to be remote? And then in January, reassess and see if wants and needs have changed. And then I know that there are slow phasing in of K1 or of special ed and ENL and 6th grade. So there are a multitude of hybrid models, and we can just learn from those folks who have started out that way.
Okay.
I had a couple questions on the remote. Is there going to be any, and I just know because parents are going to ask this, and it's important, is there any accommodations as far as parents that can't have their children in school all day long remote? So, you know, they're going to miss the morning, they're going to miss the afternoon. Is there any accommodation of recorded sessions for evening? And I'll kind of secondary that question. Is homework going to be slightly reduced because you're going to have those families that are going to be kind of working with their student in the evening? How do you see that playing out, those two things?
I think that's part of the gradual release to like independent practice. And I think that that's where the balance needs to be struck, because we need to work on like the focus of sort of cutting away the fat, right? Because we need to prioritize our standards. We need to prioritize what is necessary to be taught. There are the standards that all of the standards are important, right? But I think sometimes we teach a lot of things we like to teach, and we think we teach a lot of things because we love the book. But we need to really, especially because of the time that has been lost, we need to refocus on what is necessary to teach, what must be taught. And we really have to forego things that are nice to teach and things that are fun to teach. And I don't mean that there can't be any fun in education. We have to use the fun text as the vehicle to teach the must teach skills and standards. And therefore we have to cut away the unnecessary laborious homework tasks. And not saying we're getting rid of homework altogether, but we have to like minimize that, right? So we need to do tasks that are as much as necessary and then stop. Because especially when we're already asking students to do this day at home, it's a lot, and we know it's a lot. So we need to be able to minimize any of the extra on top of it.
And then we would bring it back when they go to hybrid, or since they're 75% at home with hybrid, we would just keep that continuous flow going.
Well, we need to be able to return things to normal, and we need to be able to refocus on the purpose of homework. Always, what is the purpose of homework, right? And we need to be really intentional and focused on why we're giving homework in the first place. So if it's something that has a purpose, and if it's something that is intentional, tied to the curriculum and is reinforcement, sure. If we need to do that, we can do that. But, you know, this is something that is a really big philosophical discussion that we could have as educators for a very long time. But it's something that we need to make sure that when we're assigning any assignment, right, we need to do as much as we need to be able to assess learning, and then we need to stop. Like, we don't need to give 35 questions just to say we gave 35 questions. You know, that's the truth.
So second thing specific, Elliot, is do we have a help desk set up? You know, I mean, I'm assuming we have plans for one, but somebody that has a cell phone that can be contacted immediately, you know, kid can't get in, or even night support, you know, if someone's going to be listening to the stuff but they can't get to it, is there a number they can call to say, look, I can't get my printer to work, I can't get those module or that lesson module, I can't get online? Do we have that phone number? And you know, like, I mean, I know we have a phone number, but do we have one that can actually like be assured that it gets a hold of somebody?
Yep. So we have the help desk is set up currently with email address helpdesk@millbrookcsd.org. The phone number for the help desk is extension 1138 off the main 4200 line, and that's published on our website as well. When we onboard the new instructional technology specialist, we're going to funnel the help desk calls for that person, they'll be added to our group because it's a distribution group. So anything that comes in rings up multiple desks, and the emails go to multiple technicians, and we're going to add the instructional technology specialist to that group. If we find that there's a large volume of calls specifically on the instructional tech software side, we may develop a secondary line for that person to use uniquely. But right now we kind of want to have all hands on deck, so we'll all be in the mix on the help desk right now. We're going to use the existing setup to do that.
So we should, I would think we'd want to put something in this presentation, you know, so that parents know. I know it's on the website, but if they can't get on the network, that's not going to do them too much good. So we should have something in the presentation that talks about, you know, if you have issues with this, you have issues with that, we have a committed turnaround time of X to get back to you. Because I mean, this isn't going to go away when we switch to hybrid. Probably get worse because they're switching back and forth.
Elliot, even if we had a tutorial and screenshots online, even for parents of how to access Parent Portal, how to navigate Google Classroom, that type of thing, that might be helpful because then they could just print it off and have it, to help the child if needed.
That's a great idea, Chris. And we have a volume of helpful tutorials on the curriculum and instruction webpage, and we're basically hyperlinking to that because it's an existing resource and adding to it as we go. We're going to add things like our Blackboard mass communications product. Once that's up and running, that'll give parents an inroad, a very easy inroad into their student schedule and teacher contact and things like that. So all that's being developed right now in parallel to these processes, and we'll publish the user information on that as soon as we can.
Elliot, I agree with Chris. Is that like when you send out that information, just as a parent, if you could just send just on the one page, just the help desk, the phone number. Don't convolute it with everything else. Just so the parents can print it off, stick it on the refrigerator, on the desk, wherever it may be. It could just be that one thing, just the help desk number, email, and that's it. And
that's great. Maybe what we'll do, Claudia, is we'll add the help desk info. Like we have all of the administrative contacts for everybody on this group right here on this call is on one page on the reentry plan. So we can add the help desk to that. And then I can make a separate page for just tech support.
Email it to everybody. Yep. And then just email just that one page to everybody so they can print it out and they have it and it's done.
Absolutely.
That's help page. Yep. Perfect. Thanks, Elliot.
You got it.
I have a question, and I'm not sure if this is for Mike, because I just noticed that the not Mike Ragusa, Mike Sotero, the middle school and high school kind of has like the timeline out, but the elementary, I'm sorry, I'm looking at it on my other computer, is like the 9 to 3:10. And this, we might not have worked all the actual, kinks out. Like I know we're going to get the teacher assignment soon. Is it like a second grader who will get a Chromebook and they'll have that open and they'll be doing their interactive with their teacher in their classroom from 9 to 3? And I'm sure, bathroom breaks are in there and lunch breaks and stuff like that. Do we know that schedule for the elementary school yet?
Yeah, so Tom and I, we've been collaborating this week just on those key things that you're talking about. So we know how many minutes we want for each subject. We know, what days the specials are going to fall on for which class. We're just figuring out what we want that to exactly look like. Like, does ELA start at 9 or are we starting that at 11? Because there's a lot of shared staff. Sometimes people don't realize that. So we have to correspond to make sure that, let's say, gym teacher A, who needs to work up here, needs to come down and help us. So we got to make sure that that's at the right time slot. So we're just trying to finalize which version of that schedule that's going to come down. So all that being said, there will be in the next coming days, and we're going to use that workshop model like we've talked about. So although there'll be classes from that time, like 9 to 3, it doesn't mean that your student's going to be on for that time. So we use that workshop model pretty heavily, K through 5. So you'll see whole class, mini lesson, ELA. So 10, 15 minutes, all 16 kids are there. And then for an hour, it's breakout into small groups. So your child might be working independently in a course of 45 minutes, but the teacher's going to check in with them at 10 of those 45 minutes. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yep.
So they're going to make their rounds just like they would in class, quite frankly. And ideally, it'll be that one-to-one connection where it kind of doesn't miss a beat from what they're used to in person. The same model is going to be used in math. And then we're still talking about like some things. Is there going to be some like project-based learning where that'll be asynchronous for social studies and science? You know, so again, it's like that mini lesson, and then hey, go off and do it, and then I'm checking in with you after a few minutes. So does that clarify the experience?
Yeah, and you know, like say second grade or something has 3 teachers. Does, you know, say math is going to go from like 9 to 9:50 or whatever it is. Does each second grade class do math all at the same time, and then they all do English, or, you know, not that it has to be, or is it broken up, or am I getting way ahead of myself?
No, I think those are the questions I'm asking too, kind of as new to it. So Tom has worked up a whole bunch of different scenarios. It's been great, and so we're narrowing them down. Tom, I don't know if you want to say anything one way.
Yeah, well, we did narrow it down to 4 or 5 different schedules, but we are looking at, yeah, we are looking at, are there a set of classes that could rotate through the grade level? So for instance, they could have math, writing, and reading rotating. So they might not all be on the same, you know, across the board, second graders all the same time, but at least, you know, they'll have the same number of minutes, same expectation.
Okay. Great.
So in summary, it'll mimic like their schedule in person. But when it's time for that independent practice that would be in the workshop model, that's when the student is not in that face-to-face setting.
Okay. All right. Thank you both.
Caroline, can I ask you a question as far as just the IEPs, as far as how it's going to work with co-taught, and, you know, as far as just if you want to quickly talk about reevaluating, because, you know, not to put you on the spot, but I know a lot of people will be asking that. So just how a co-taught, really more importantly, IEP will work in a Zoom world or in a Google Meet world.
Yeah, so the reason that co-taught may remain in a remote environment is because co-taught by definition is an integrative, inclusive program. Therefore, it needs to have the general education peers along with it. So basically, if the general education program is happening online, and that's where the general education students and program is existing, that's where the students with disabilities who are placed in that co-taught program will be educated as well. And the general education and special education teacher assigned to that ICT class will both be logging in and both have the same responsibilities that you saw in that schedule that was outlined before. So where it says that initially there will be direct instruction, that might follow any one of the co-taught models. So for example, there might be some team teaching where, you know, the initial like assessment of skills from the day before, where they might be reviewing what they had done, might happen at the first portion of the meeting. And then they may possibly be going over the new information. And then it may be true that they might take 2 separate groups and be doing like parallel teaching. Now, those groups within them may both have some students who there might be some students with disabilities and some general education students in this group, but parallel teaching might occur where this group of students has already selected a topic, they've honed their ideas, and they're ready to begin their writing process. And this group is not quite ready to do that, and they're still working on identifying their topic for research or something like that. So maybe the ELA teacher is, you know, still working with this group on something, and the special education teacher is taking this group and they're going to start actually working on like the strategies to get your writing started. So maybe just to use like 6th grade, maybe Miss Murphy is working with this group of students on honing a topic and how to select a topic for research, and maybe Ms. Bo is taking a group of students and they're working on actually starting the writing process using some strategies to scaffold your writing. And maybe Ms. Bo throws a link into the group chat in Google and kind of takes that group into a separate little chat, and then they come back together. And it's like two parallel groups within the same class period kind of thing.
Great, thank you.
So the same thing could happen in a classroom.
Anything else?
I have a couple questions. As this is new to us, we're learning too about how things are going to be. I have some non-parent questions, and the parents may be interested. So the attendance, is the attendance going to be a initial snapshot of who's there, or typically in the classroom, you know, if someone had to leave early or, you know, whatever, how you won't, well, will he be recording if somebody was there initially and wasn't there at the end online or not?
Recording? Did you say recording? Like recording the screen?
Recording attendance.
Right, so we won't be like recording the screen.
No.
We will be recording attendance like in the student management system.
In other words, present just at the beginning, not present through the whole session.
Right, so student expectation would be that they are logging in and remaining for the entirety of the session, and that there will be accountability for the work that was due throughout that session. Where there is a gradual release towards independence, if a student is finished with the work for that session, that is the time when that student is released for that period, right?
Yes. Oh, yeah. Not just that they're there for the whole session.
What's that?
It could be technological, just that they're there for the whole session. There could be technological problems, or who knows why people drop off. Right, but I get that, right? So, I mean, I would think that our teachers would not be punitive with something like that. Right. No. The other thing too is not so much the grading, but the standards. So 15 to 20 minutes, that's, I'll just throw a number. That's 50% of what they get in a normal year. Instruction probably. Maybe I'm off by a little bit. So is the grading going to be on the original standards of 2 years ago, or it's going to be on how much content we could possibly deliver? Yeah, so that's 15 to 20 minutes of direct instruction. So that's actually when the teacher is providing the actual assessment of whatever was delivered the period before. So if maybe there was something turned into Google Classroom that they've reviewed, maybe they had like a ticket, an entrance ticket or an exit ticket from the day before that the students were meant to do, the teacher's reviewing that. They're now providing new information. So this is direct instruction for 15 to 20 minutes. To be honest with you, they shouldn't be doing more than that in a class period. They shouldn't be providing more new information than 15 to 20 minutes anyway. So what we're saying in direct instruction is maybe it is a video of them doing a new technique, a new brush stroke in art. Maybe one of our high school art teachers is providing a video of them showing a new brush technique in art. Maybe Ms. Tomaseski in biology is doing a voiceover PowerPoint of herself and then allowing students to ask her questions, okay? So that is direct instruction. I, the teacher, am actually delivering new information, direct instruction to you, the student, at that time. That's not to say that that's the only time we are interacting, but that is where the new information is coming. And then there is an assessment of the new skill, and then I am gradually releasing you, meaning like once I'm assessing, I am sending groups of students as they're able to do it on their own, I'm letting you go. Which means if you, John, are able to do it independently quicker than Perry and Howard, I'm not making you wait for Perry and Howard
to be able to go off on your own and be able to do it independently.
Yeah, thank you for that. But I think I was looking for a different. Probably didn't word it very well. So there will be less instruction going on than normal. What I'm trying to get at is you'll still be able to cover the same standard with half the instruction.
Yeah, there's not actually less instruction going on than normal. It's just more of a flexible period. So normally you're in a class period for a full 40 minutes, regardless of where you are on the continuum of who gets it first, who gets it second. Everybody is there for the guided practice, for the independent practice. It doesn't matter. The teacher, deliver instruction, and everybody has to stay there. Everybody has to learn at the same pace. It doesn't matter if you actually get it first, second, third. Everybody's there.
But that time is sufficient to cover the standard in such that the student will be successful.
But if I understand, Caroline, it's the same as you would always do. That's why I was confused by that little number. Like they're in for 45 minutes, but they're being taught for 15. But that's the way it is, whether they're face to face or not, right? I mean,
right, because
minutes of new.
In reality, there may be students who are on there the whole time, but the students who get it and are showing proficiency with that new skill, they can do their independent practice and they can move on. So they'll have an opportunity for a break throughout the day. And if another student has difficulty with a new concept, they'll have the opportunity to work in a smaller group with that teacher for the remainder of that time.
So Caroline, correct me if I'm wrong. It's very much the workshop model where they show that mini lesson and then the teacher is not off for that extra 20 minutes. The teacher is assessing in small groups on an individual basis, like coaching them up, almost in sports. Like, here's how we hit. Now I'm done doing the hitting demonstration, but I'm with you, then I'm with you, then I'm with you, then I'm with you.
Right. I'm just trying to point out that 2 years ago, we would typically do 15 to 20 minutes of instruction in a period, or would it be longer?
Right, so this happens in classrooms all the time.
Oh, okay.
And this is what teachers do. So they provide instruction and then they move throughout the classroom doing this. This is just happening now virtually.
Okay, thank you. That's good enough.
Anything else? Okay. The last thing is, so we got 3 of these meetings coming up. I'd really like to get 3 board members at each one of them. I don't know if you can go back to the schedule, Elliot, of the meeting.
Yeah, 1 second, I'll pull it right up.
I'll be traveling on Friday, so I prefer Thursday. So,
Okay. Well, you want to do the Thursday meeting?
if I could, yeah.
Thank you.
I can do Thursday also.
Okay. John, Jen. I'll do Thursday. That way, yeah, I'll do Thursday. What about Friday morning?
I'll do either, but 1 o'clock is better for me.
Okay, so I put Chris on that, on the 1 o'clock.
Barry, I can do both of them. Both times is fine.
The Friday one?
Yeah.
I can only do the 1 o'clock, Perry.
All right, so Friday PM will be Claudia, Chris, and Howard.
Yep.
Friday AM, Thursday is John, Jen, and Perry. Jesus. And Friday AM is Claudia.
Could be me, myself, and I.
There you go.
Maybe among friends.
Paul, you still there?
I don't see Paul.
All right, I'll do the Friday AM one as well then. Anybody else for Friday AM?
Or I should be okay. I just have to check my schedule. So
All right, tentative Chris. Okay. So we got John, Jen, Perry on Thursday, Claudia, Perry, Chris on Friday AM, Chris, Claudia, Howard on Friday PM.
Great.
Okay. Very good. All right, anything else before we move on? Oops, I'm gonna shut that down. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make the motion.
Yeah, nice, nice, big, quick getting action. All right, so Claudia, we have a second.
I'll second.
All right,
Sorry,
all in
Jeff.
favor?
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any against? All right, thanks, everybody. I know it's really late and appreciate you guys hanging out, and we got a lot of work to do. All right, thank you.
Everyone, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.